Hello and welcome to Beyond the Clear Walls, a new series aiming to talk about aquarium fishes from a different angle than what you usually see published and or on the web. That is, we focus more on the fish in nature and what makes the fish unique morphologically and taxonomically. Aquarium care coverage? A bit less important here. Today we talk about the Gyrinocheilus, a tiny family of fishes that has a less than tiny role in the aquarium hobby. The family Gyrinocheilus, or algae eaters, is a monogeneric family of fishes in the order Cypriniformes, or carps, minnows, and loaches. It consists of the genus Gyrinocheilus, which currently contains 3 species: Gyrinocheilus aymonieri, or the Chinese algae eater, Gyrinocheilus pinnaci, or the spotted algae eater, and Gyrinocheilus pustulosus, or Borneo algae eater. To most fish keepers, and 97% of people concerned with this family, aymonieri might as well be the only species. Gyrinocheilus are distributed across Southeast Asia. This is one of the least speciose members of the Cypriniformes, type of the Volantelidae, which is this group of loaches. This is significant because Cypriniformes is an extremely rich and diverse taxon, and these fishes represent a very small, unique group. They are highly adapted to fast-flowing rivers and exhibit several adaptations to remaining stationary, breathing, and feeding in these environments. The 3 species of Gyrinocheilus are distinguished by bodily markings, fin ray counts, and tubercle placement. Gyrinocheilus pinnaci has 10.5 dorsal fin rays and sports spots on all fins. When young, the body is filled with distinct, separate spots. These fade somewhat as the fish ages and the general body color darkens. Its tubercles are located on the side of the head. The other 2 species have the tubercles on the snout. Gyrinocheilus pinnaci is native to the Mekong River. Gyrinocheilus pustulosus is distinguished from its congeners by lacking spots on all the fins and having uniform dark body coloration as an adult. No pictures of juveniles exist online, but they apparently have 3 rows of dark spots. It possesses 9.5 dorsal rays and has facial granules that are not tubercles. It's also found in Mekong River. Gyrinocheilus aymonieri also has 9.5 dorsal fin rays, but only has spots on the caudal and dorsal fins. It possesses 2 rows of alternating spots on the body, and the small spot directly posterior to the top of the operculum. Like its congeners, Gyrinocheilus aymonieri is found in the Mekong River, but also extends to the Calpria and Malay Peninsula. A feral population was also established in Puerto Rico, but its current status is unknown, especially after Hurricane Irma. Pustulosus and aymonieri are more closely related to each other than they are to pinnaci, but since the pinnaci is the most basal member of this genus. Quick tangent here. These fishes have literally the worst set of common names I've ever encountered. Algae eater. Thousands of fish species eat algae. That's like calling a horse grass eater. Like the subject of this video, horses indeed mainly feed on grass, but boiling an entire animal's identity down to a diet that it shares with thousands of other creatures leads to way too much confusion. In the fish trade, when someone says algae eater, they could be talking about at least 20 different kinds of fish. Sucking loach isn't that much better. These fish are great at sucking, but they aren't really loaches. To make matters even worse, there's hundreds of actual loaches that do suck, literally. But they're not the subject of this video. Even though this name positively blows, I'll refer to this entire family as algae eaters. Here are a list of synapomorphies of the Gyrinocheilus. Their mouth parts are modified into a sucking apparatus. There's a transverse groove present on the tip of the snout. There are no barbels, nor pharyngeal teeth. There's a small incurrence lip above the operculum, a complete swim bladder, and a bunch of skeletal stuff which I don't really have the time to explain. The most distinctive synapomorphy or physical feature that defines the clade evolutionarily of the Gyrinocheilidae, is the highly modified mouth that allows them to attach to submerged surfaces in rapidly flowing water. The lips are greatly enlarged and fused together, with the rostral cap or flap of skin above the mouth fused with the upper lip. These lips are lined with inward-facing keratinous hooks with cutting edges that provide friction and aid in scraping edible matter off of surfaces, kind of like a tadpole. A bit of etymology for you. Gyrinus means tadpole in Greek. Cheilos means lip. The literal name of the Gyrinocheilidae means tadpole lips. They are also supported by highly flexible mucochondroid tissue. Mucochondroid tissue is gelatinous connective tissue found in the heads and under the skin of teleost fishes. The mucochondroid tissue helps support the lips and protects them from pressure-induced damage. The lips are also fringed with papillae, or fleshy cellular growths, around the circumference. The mouth opens in the center of the lips and has two blind cavities directly below it. These are literally organic suction cups. When the sucker is not in use, it folds up under the head in two postlabial or behind the lips grooves, reducing drag. The lip margins resemble crescents when the sucker is idle. Suction is produced by the fish widening its lips, pressing its mouth against the surface, and closing the oral valve. Water is expelled from the lips, creating a vacuum not unlike that of, well, a suction cup. The blind cavities below the mouth expand and create a greater area for suction. While the sucker is in use, water is unable to enter the mouth, making the sucker closed from outside interference. When the fish is feeding, it opens and closes its sucker rapidly against the surface. This allows the fish to rasp off any encrusting material on the rocks which it inhabits. According to an experiment done in Canada in 2006, this type of sucker mouth appears to be much more efficient than the open suckers of lower Korean catfishes or plecos. The fish has a greater adhesive strength while using less energy than an open sucker, which operates as the fish breathes. However, the closed sucker only allows the fish to orient themselves in one direction at rest. Lower Korean fishes can reorient themselves at will, but keep in mind their suction is tied to their breathing, which uses more energy. My personal anecdotal evidence proves this to be true, at least for the strength part, as algae eaters always seem to find themselves stuck to the bag when I bring them home, unlike plecos. Maybe it's because they come from faster waters than plecos and friends. Most fish use their mouths to breathe. Because of their highly specialized oral morphology, Gyrinocheilids have lost this ability, at least when they're stuck to something. Instead, the fish inhales directly through a small slit above the operculum or gill cover that's guarded by a valve. This slit directly opens into the pharynx or throat, and the water is ejected from the lower half of the operculum when the fish exhales. This method of breathing allows the fish to breathe and maintain suction simultaneously. However, less water flows over the gills than a fish that breathes with its mouth. This means that less dissolved oxygen is potentially absorbed by the fish. To maximize the amount of water flowing over the gills, Gyrinocheilids breathe more rapidly than other fishes. Mature Gyrinocheilids, like many other Cypriniform fishes, possess tubercles on their heads. These keratinous growths are present in both sexes of the fish. To the uninitiated eye, it makes the fish look like it has the worst case of acne. Both tubercles and acne appear when the animal in question is going through hormonal changes, so it's not the worst comparison actually. The location of the tubercles is a major diagnostic feature for distinguishing the three species. Their purpose is currently unknown, but considering that they're rough and only present on mature specimens, I'll leave you to draw your own conclusions. Another feature found in mature Gyrinocheilids is the transverse groove on the tip of the snout. This groove, made of fibrous thickenings of the dermis, or layer of skin directly below the visible epidermis, serves as an anchoring point for the the supportive mucochondroid tissue near the lips and allows for the joint between the maxillae or upper jawbones and neurocranium, or its gully bits holding the brain, to move. Since this joint is movable, the fish can use its oral sucker without it being damaged by excessive force. Noticeably, Gyrinocheilus lack barbels, and less noticeably, pharyngeal teeth, both of which are major diagnostic features of most Cypriniformes. Barbels, like the whiskers on a catfish or carp, serve as sensory organs to help the fish find food. Pharyngeal teeth are located in the fish's throat, on the last couple of gill rakers. They're pretty useful if you swallow things whole. Despite lacking pharyngeal teeth, algae eaters do possess dermal plates on the gill rakers. Gyrinocheilus probably lack these features because of their diet of encrusting matter on submerged surfaces. They do not have to process their food beyond swallowing, or look particularly hard for it. Strangely enough, Gyrinocheilus possess a well-developed, though small, swim bladder. Swim bladders are organs that fill up with gas that help the fish remain buoyant. A swim bladder would ordinarily only hinder a bottom-dwelling fish like Gyrinocheilus remaining stationary in moving water. However, this doesn't stop them from sinking like rocks though. Gyrinocheilus had a long history of being taxonomically unclear. People have struggled throughout the ages to figure out where exactly these fishes are placed. Even to this day, aquarium books and websites don't know where to place these things. They're catfish. No, they're loaches? I don't know, who cares? Let's place them in miscellaneous. Hold on tight. This is gonna get confusing. The first species described, Gyrinocheilus aymonieri, was initially described as Tylorhynchus, another species of unclear affiliations in the late 19th century. Tylorhynchus has its own family now, depending on who you talk to. Yay! They're basically flattened minnows that live in Himalayan streams. Congratulations! You now know more than 99% of people about these fishes. Okay, back to the video's main subject. The Gyrinocheilus genus was erected in 1902 to describe Gyrinocheilus pustulosus. Gyrinocheilus aymonieri was not very scrupulously described and was placed in Tylorhynchus until 1935. Gyrinocheilidae was also initially considered a subfamily of the Homolotarids, a name that now refers to the modern Balateridae or elongated hillstream loaches. Reagan noticed the well-developed swim bladder and lack of barbels, and realized that this fish is not a member of the family in 1911. However, he placed Gyrinocheilus amongst the Cyprinids. The Gyrinocheilidae was erected in 1923 by Hora. His reasoning was that there seems to be little doubt that, judging from their appearance, the members of the genus Gyrinocheilus are remarkably similar to those of the genera Chrysocheilus and Gara, but this outward similarity, in my opinion, is directly correlated with the life of these fishes in partly rapidly running waters. The presence of the slender, toothless lower pharyngeals, the structure of the scales, the remarkable modification of the gill openings to form inhalant and exhalant apertures with the structure of the mouth, lips, and jaws are, in my opinion, better defined characters than those that separate Cyprinidae, Cubidae, and Homolotaridae from one another. By now, I hope we've established that the Gyrinocheilidae is a distinct clade. Whether the Gyrinocheilidae are placed in relation to all the other Cypriniform fishes is another question. If I haven't mentioned it yet, Gyrinocheilids have an eclectic grab bag of primitive and derived skeletal characteristics. Many of these are shared with loaches and suckers, while others don't appear outside of this one family. Relatively few are shared with actual cyprinoids. To keep it short, they're probably most closely related to the suckers, which ironically don't share a native range with them anymore. Or they could be their own distinct clade, either basal to the rest of the Cypriniformes, or sister or the nearest evolutionary relative to the Cobatoidea. Before a controversial paper was published in 2016 that proposed splitting the Cyprinidae into multiple families, the Gyrinocheilids were considered part of the Cobatoidea or loaches, possibly sisters to Catastomidae or suckers, which in turn were sisters to the rest of the Cobetordia. So basically related to the closest ancestor of loaches, if that makes any sense. One of the common names from earlier now makes a bit more sense. Those other two groups are comprised of largely benthic or bottom-living riverine fishes, which Gyrinocheilus happens to be one of. Catastomids are Cypriniformes that also like barbels and suck food off the bottom with large modified lips. So they were, and still are, often viewed as closely related groups. Some catastomids even somewhat resemble Gyrinocheilus in appearance. However, catastomids do have pharyngeal teeth and are unable to adhere to submerged surfaces with their mouths. A few recent papers appear to place Gyrinocheilus at the base of the Cypriniform family tree, sister to all other Cypriniforms, and in their very own clade. The conserved diploid karyotype genome of 2n equals 48 appears to strengthen this hypothesis. According to a Japanese paper published by the Linnean Society, the lineage leads to the Gyrinocheilidae from the Cyprinidae and Catastomidae roughly 151 million years ago. This data is based off molecular evidence, as Cypriniform fossils in general are fairly rare and nobody has found any older than the early Eocene. The earliest Cypriniforms themselves only appeared 155 million years ago, around the time Pangaea broke up. However, this molecular evidence was based off of mitochondrial dating, which often leads to overestimation of species divergence times. Yes, the direct ancestors of the algae eaters you can buy at any pet store might have shared space with non-avian dinosaurs. Think of all the cool stuff these weird sucky fish outlived. Said paper also claimed that Cypriniforms originated in Laurasia, or modern-day East and South Asia. Some of the basal representatives of that group, like cyprinids, loaches, and algae eaters, are found only in southern Asia, which is evidence that this lineage originated there. Since many of these clades seem to be bottom-feeding fishes, it's implied that the Cypriniform ancestor was indeed a bottom-dwelling fish like Gyrinocheilus. The Japanese article also implies many of the benthic basal Cypriniforms competed with each other heavily, leaving some families strangely small compared to others. Remember when I said the suckers don't share a range with Gyrinocheilus anymore? They were mostly eaten out of house and home by actual cyprinids and fled to North America for the most part. Also notice how tiny and hard to accurately place Gyrinocheilidae itself is. The other Gyrinocheilids, if they ever existed, must have had to take on this highly specialized form to avoid the intense competition of the possible Cypriniform explosion of the Mesozoic. A newer paper seems to again place the group in a clade with its suckers, but the paper focused more on knife fishes than caracins. This paper also dates the differentiation of Cypriniforms around 98.6 to 84.7 million years ago, with Gyrinocheilidae and Catastomidae appearing 73.6 to 60.5 million years ago. Still a fairly old lineage, but not putting some dinosaurs to shame. Yet another, more recent, like 2017 recent journal article, places the family as sister to the Cobetordia. Again. It also called out the Japanese paper for overestimating the age of the Cypriniformes. For those that still want to dab on the dinosaurs with your weird Laotian sucky thing, the paper still claimed the group arose before the KT extinction event. You know, the big meteor. No matter how you slice it, the Gyrinocheilidae is a fairly basal, yet very distinct group within the Cypriniformes. Gyrinocheilids are egg-gathering fishes that spawn in the spring and summer. Their eggs are semi-buoyant, so they can reach the bottom of a different stretch of river than the parents spawned in. Yep, algae eaters are amazing parents. Just drop their gametes and run away. The larvae feed on phytoplankton starting at 4.5 millimeters long. Strangely enough, the larvae possess a superior or upturned mouth with separate lips until around 14 millimeters long, when these lips develop. The fish begin to scrape algae off the surfaces when they become post-larvae. Juveniles travel together in large groups. In the wild, Gyrinocheilus aymonieri inhabits river basins with hard surfaces that they can graze on. Typically, they spend their days in rock crevices. They migrate to floodplains when the water level rises. Pinnaci is known to migrate from December to February, or around Chinese New Year time. Gyrinocheilus aymonieri usually feeds on algae and detritus, but is known to occasionally consume small crustaceans and insect larvae. They prefer thinner layers of encrusting matter and defend their patch of algae and slime from any intruders. Stomach contents in one study found mostly algae in an unspecified number of specimens. All three species grow to a maximum size of slightly less than a foot long or 30 centimeters. Gyrinocheilids are a food fish in their native range. Tasty. Small ones are used in soup and fish sauce, while larger specimens are sold in local markets like most other foot-long fishes. Judging by their diet and relations, assume they taste like grass and mud with a side of bones. Gyrinocheilus pinnaci and aymonieri catches are very important to the local economies of their native range. Since they're impossible to catch with hook and line, gill nets and traps are placed in rocky rapid stretches instead. Luckily for them, they're not fished with bombs and automatic rifles like some other fish in their native range were at one point. In fact, their populations are declining somewhat because of overexploitation and damming. The effect of damming on population health of these two species is yet to be fully explored, but since these are migratory riverine fishes, it's best to assume the worst. It is known that siltation in the rapids where pinnaci lives kills the algae they feed on, leading to smaller catches. Despite this, both species are listed as least concerned population decreasing by the IUCN. I mean, if you can find them at PetSmart for $2.19, they can't be that rare. Little information is known about Gyrinocheilus pistilosus conservation status, as it's not been evaluated by the IUCN. Outside the native range, the Chinese algae eater Gyrinocheilus aymonieri is an extremely common aquarium fish. It's unknown how they got this name, as they rarely occur in China and are much more common in Thailand. Aymonieri is occasionally known as the Siamese algae eater, but the name also belongs to another fish, the Gyrinocheilus I mentioned ever so briefly earlier. Again, see why common names stink? They're apparently bred in massive quantities for this aquarium trade, which explains the low price. Therefore, Gyrinocheilus aymonieri are rarely caught in the wild for aquarium purposes. The other two species are very rarely encountered in aquaria, with Gyrinocheilus pistilosus probably never being intentionally imported. Pinnaci comes in very sporadic shipments. Most aquarium keepers buy Gyrinocheilus aymonieri to rid their tank of an algae problem. However, Chinese algae eaters are generally said by many hobbyists to be a poor choice to solve an aquarium's infestation of algae. By the way, clearing algae isn't a good reason to buy a fish anyway. Fish keepers buy fish because they're cool, not a job they can do for you. As young fish, they will eat algae and not bother other fishes in aquaria. As they age, they supposedly learn to eat fish food and ignore algae, which is in direct opposition of their wild diet. They also grow to unmanageable sizes and can be territorial to other fishes in aquaria, especially other bottom feeders. The Chinese algae eater will even attach themselves to the sides of slow-moving or flat-sided fishes and feed from their slime coat, causing injury to the other fish. It's unknown why the fish does this, but Gyrinocheilus do also ingest the encrusting organisms living in algae, and those aren't very common in most fish tanks. Nutritional deficiencies, perhaps? Bored? Who knows? Despite these drawbacks, this fish is still somewhat popular amongst aquarists and widely sold in pet shops worldwide. There are even albino, golden, piebald, and short-bodied forms available for sale, which is probably a result of artificial breeding. Speaking of breeding, aymonieri has only been bred once in captivity as far as we know, which was entirely accidental. It involved a drastic change in water conditions, hinting at the fish's migratory lifestyle. A possible reason for their popularity is their low price compared to other fishes, ubiquity, tolerance of a wide variety of aquarium conditions, and less alien appearance compared to Plecostomus, because they look like fish and not dinosaurs. Despite me mentioning their ubiquity in many pet stores, even Walmart, some online shops don't sell these fish because of their bad reputation. According to data taken in 1997, each individual Chinese algae eater is worth 6 US cents, lower than any other fish in the paper. They also resemble other Cypriniform fishes that do a better job of eating algae, and are less likely to attack other fishes, like Gyrinocheilus, which leads to confusion amongst less experienced aquarists. In their defense, there's a ton of pencil-shaped grazing Cypriniformes with a horizontal stripe. Most experienced fish keepers tend to avoid Chinese algae eaters like the plague, because they don't do their job and attack other fishes instead. Chinese algae eaters tend to live near the bottom of aquaria, since they are negatively buoyant. The sucker mouths will allow them to climb the walls of an aquarium and attach to any submerged surface. They're also a crepuscular species preferring to be active at dusk, just like the plecos that a few tasteless people find ugly. Since Gyrinocheilus aymonieri is very easy to find in pet shops, it's a common specimen to use for molecular phylogeny of other fishes, especially other Cypriniformes. The other two algae eaters probably behave very similarly, but since they're almost never individually imported, who the heck knows? Honestly, you can find more info than you could ever want on how to care for Gyrinocheilus online, or in various aquarium books. Remember, aquarium care is not the focus of this series. Just make sure they get tons of space, clean water with good flow, and adequate amounts of food. This probably applies to the other two species, if by some miracle you come across a specimen. And that's beyond the clear walls with the Gyrinocheilus fishes. Honestly, the Chinese algae eater is one of the most mistreated fish within the aquarium hobby, about a tier below goldfish and betas. I made this video to give it, and the other two members of the genus, their proper due as interesting animals in their own right, not as much maligned algae cleaners shoved in too small tanks or heavily badmouthed by well-meaning hobbyists. Honestly, who hasn't kept aymonieri in aquariums? Have y'all seen the other two species in person? Eaten an algae eater? Let me know in the comments.